The top 10 men's brand shoes to resell on eBay. Get started reselling right now by subscribing to this channel. And if you're really serious about your reselling journey, then shoot on over to thekingofthrift.com and download How to Crush It Reselling with No Experience. There's a link in the description. I remember back in the day, one of the biggest problems I had was I would go out, I would pick up many different brands of shoes, but I didn't know which ones were hot and which ones were not. So what I would do is I would sort of track my sales over time. I would make myself a list. I made a physical list, guys, a written list. And I would track the shoes that the brands that sold the best and the ones that didn't sell at all. And over time, I narrowed it down. Number one, Nike. Nike has been around forever. We want to call them probably the second or third sneaker on the planet that really gained notoriety. Number one being Converse. Number two, I would say, being Adidas, Run DMC. And then number three came Nike with Michael Jordan, MJ, who skyrocketed them into fame and into the spotlight. Number two, Under Armour. Under Armour is a very good brand, guys. You know, it's an up-and-coming brand. It's not exactly so much up-and-coming as it was about 5 years ago. Right now, it's a very established brand, and their stock keeps going up. And the reason why is because Under Armour makes a good quality product at a very good price. And if they keep increasing that quality, it's going to rival that of Adidas and Nike. And I'm sure some people would dare to say that they're already at that level or slightly under. Personally, my professional opinion is Under Armour, you've still got just a little ways to go. So with that being said, number two is Under Armour. Be on the lookout. The number three top brand to sell on eBay in 2022 is Haan. One thing I like about Haan is they're so plentiful in the marketplace. It's not necessarily the highest end brand. I would say that Haan is going to be one of your major brands that you're going to find out there. You're going to find it on a daily basis. And you shouldn't have any problem reselling Haan as long as you're sticking with, you know, good styles and you're staying away from that low-end, entry-level Haan stuff. And what is the entry-level, low-end Haan stuff? That's something that you're just gonna have to give a little time, get a little experience under your belt, and you'll begin to recognize what's hot with Haan and what's not. You've heard of them and you've seen them, and you've probably flipped a pair, and that is Allen Edmonds. Allen Edmonds is a very nice dress shoe. They're definitely a high-end brand. This list, I actually stayed away from really high-end brands like Gucci and, you know, Ferragamos, because those brands everyone knows, and the bottom line is you don't find those brands every day. What I'm giving you today, guys, is something that you can go out and you're gonna find these brands on a regular basis. So be on the lookout for Hans. They have excellent resale value. Could I just say Haan? The thing about Allen Edmonds is, like I said, they've been around. They're a good established brand. They are very nice dress shoe for men. They hold up very well over time. And as far as dress shoes goes, they're top of the line. You're never gonna go wrong picking up a nice pair of Allen Edmonds at a decent price. As long as they are in good condition, you have no problem reselling them. Okay, number six coming in. Number six is Doc Martens. If you've been out there, again, I know you've seen Doc Martens. And again, the reason I put them in this list is because they're very plentiful. You will find them out there. They've been making them since, I think, the 70s or the 60s. So what that means is the marketplace is flooded with them. There's tons and tons of Doc Martens. Just one word of caution. Be on the lookout. Every so often you will find fake Doc Martens. I used to find fake Doc Martens pretty regular, but not so much anymore, so you don't have to worry as much. If you get a pair of, you know, suspect Doc Martens, then be suspicious, be careful, because you don't want to get that, you don't want to list them on eBay and then get your account suspended because you got a Vero, you listed something counterfeit. Classic styles, the more eyelets the better, the taller the boot, the more you're probably going to get for it. You know, make sure that they are real leather. If they're not real leather, that probably means they're fake. They could be some of the newer stuff that's made out of the vegan type materials and stuff like that. But if you're not sure, do a little Google search and, you know, look up the model numbers, and that should tell you everything you need to know. And number seven is Adidas, a classic brand name that we all know and love. The only thing to be careful with Adidas, same thing with Nikes, is if you see something you think it might be vintage, it probably isn't. It's probably a remake. So you want to look it up, and maybe they've got a little yellowing going on. It doesn't matter. They're probably remakes, but in some, you know, in many instances, it doesn't matter if they're remakes, they're still gonna sell well. Another word of caution, be careful when selling used sneakers, and the reason being that sneakers are a disposable item. They're made to be wore out and tossed away. Many times you can't tell, especially if they're worn indoors, how much they've been actually worn. And you will sell them to someone, they look good on the outside, but after they wear them around a little bit, their feet start to hurt. And basically what you've done is sold someone a beat down pair of shoes that looks good. So try to keep that, keep that in mind as you're reselling Adidas and Nikes and any type of sneaker for that matter. Be careful because there are Adidas that aren't going to sell at all, just like there's Nikes that won't sell, and the same thing with Haans. Just, stick to what you know, stick to the classics, look up the model numbers, see how they're selling, see what the sell-through rate is. And that should give you pretty much what you need to know. You need to know how to do research, in other words. Coming in number 8, I included Reebok for good measure because now we have Nike, Adidas, Reebok. Those are going to be your 3 main sneaker brands. Now, the good thing about Reebok is they go way back, and you can find some old school Reeboks that are worth a lot of money. If you can find Reebok pumps, what those are, they made 2 types of pumps that I'm aware of. They may have made more, but I think it was just the 2 types. Number 1 was the basketball pumps. Now, if you see the old school Reeboks and their high tops and they have a basketball on the tongue, and it's a literal basketball, it's tiny and it sticks out. And that's what you squeeze, and that's how you pump the shoe up. Now, if you can find an original pair of those, they're worth a ton of money. If you can find a pair of remakes, they're also worth a decent amount of money. Now, they did another model, and it was the tennis pumps. And I think those were also high tops. They could have been mid tops, but they had little tennis ball in the front, and it would pump up and would pump the shoe up, and the shoe would fill with air, and it would snug up to your foot. It might give it a more snug fit. And there's a little button next to it to let the air out before you take the shoe off. There's Reebok Classics and Reebok's Runners. They got all the high top Reeboks from the 80s and the 90s. These are all still really hot. But then again, if you can find newer Reeboks and Reeboks that they've done collaborations with other companies, those are hot. A lot of the newer, the streetwear stuff. There's so many types, there's so many kinds, and there's so many different types of Reeboks. Like I said, just do a little research, learn about the product, learn about the brand, and then you'll know what to look for when you're out there. But that being said, guys, I'm here to let you know that Reebok is a very good brand to resell on eBay. All right, coming in at number 9, I did promise you Converse. That's right. Converse is also a very good brand to resell. And Converse was literally the very first sneaker. Chuck Taylor's All-Stars, way back in the day. The first basketball shoe, the first sneaker. What's interesting is they haven't changed on all those years. You still got the exact same identical style and shoe. The most classic styles are going to be the vanilla, color type shoe. It's sort of like a cream color. That one's going to be the most desirable. The 1-stars are also really nice if you can find those. The Converse suede. I mean, there's so many different types. Like I said, they go back so far. And of course, the old school Chuck Taylors are the best. The older, the better. You're not going to see a lot of vintage Adidas. You're not going to see a lot of vintage Nikes or vintage Converse. Not like they were back in the day when I started in this game. I found them everywhere. But now, like I said, they're very, very few and far between. Most of what you can find now that appears to be vintage is actually remakes. Like I said, do your research on each of these brands and you can find the vintage ones that are worth the most. And also the most current styles and models. That's what I would recommend, and do research on each one of these brands and find out which ones are the vintage that are hot and desirable and which ones of the newest are hot and desirable. And you're going to find that out by how many are listed online, what the sell-through rate is, and how much they're selling for. Check those 3 things. It should pretty much give you about what you need to know. Vans, guys, man, that company, I watched that company go from obscurity to what it is now, which is basically a powerhouse in the industry. As time went on, skating got more and more popular. Skateboarding style became more and more popular over the recent years. And that has basically elevated and lifted Vans up to the level where they are, which is, man, I would say amongst their fan base, they are second to none. There's not going to be a brand to stand against or rival Vans. I mean, what are you going to do? Airwalk? Vision Streetwear? What, DC? These are the only ones I can think of, and I'm in the business. Having said that, people who wear Vans now have nothing to do with skating or skateboarding. It has nothing to do with that. It's strictly a fashion statement. And they're one of those companies, they've been around since way back in the day, and they haven't changed the style over the years. They modernized it, but they have also kept the original styling. Having said that, Vans has not messed around. They have not messed with a good thing, and all they've done is take it and continue to elevate it. So kudos to Vans for being on this list so many years later. I mean, they were hot back in the day. I used to be a skater. That's when I wore Vans, and no one in my whole school really wore Vans except me and my skate crew. Now they've got a million styles and colors. But if you're wondering what to look for as far as vintage Vans, number 1, first and foremost, I would say is going to be the black and white checkered Vans slip-ons. Those were definitely by far the most desirable shoe in the Vans collection from back in, the 80s. Black suede Vans, the old school suede lace-up Vans, the Rasta colors, Vans. Those are hot, the yellow and red, a green. Those are a few to look for as far as the vintage Vans. And again, if you do your research, you're not gonna have any problem knowing what's hot and what's not. So over time, as I wrote these brands down and I came up with this list, I was able to go out and it took my reselling to that next level. And I'm hoping it's gonna do the same thing for you. It took my shoe reselling to that next level. If this video helped you out, help me out and give it a thumbs up. And if you're really serious about taking your reselling journey and kicking it into overdrive, then shoot over to thekingofthrift.com and download How to Crush It Reselling with No Experience. That's 20 years of my personal experience, exclusive content that you will find nowhere on the internet. Links in the description. Take the information that I've given you today and get on out
there and make that money on eBay.